Hey guys, so I am working on a Samsung refrigerator, and complaint is frozen. Well, customers don't know, but basically the fresh food section is totally warm. And so basically what we're doing here, the first pictures were basically locations of where I am actually doing this defrosting. So one thing you have to keep in mind when trying to get behind the evaporator cover, everything is plastic and foam, and you have foam, which is your seal, and it is very delicate, so you have to be super delicate. So what I have here is a steamer, which in combination with a vinyl hose, and I insert it on the top, and obviously on those previous photos they were at the bottom, and of course those screws at the bottom, those 3 screws, you gotta remove those, and also the middle support right there, and just take your time. It is not a 5-minute job, and also it will depend on how frozen your unit is. So some will be quicker, but I would definitely say, just take your time. If you're not comfortable removing it, then you can always leave the fridge unplugged a day, maybe 2 days, or you can unplug it, stick a fan in there, and just keep checking, see if it's, you should easily, or you shouldn't have to force it. It should just come right off. So you pry gentle from the bottom, and it should just lift right out, and slowly, remove it. Basically, you have the outer, which is plastic, and then under it is all foam. So very delicate. So yeah, my steamer is acting up. It's burning my hands, so I have to use a towel in this. I have to replace this unit. It's been pretty good though, but let me wrap it up with something. Steam is super hot. So this video is pretty long, so I'll probably just be silent. I wanted to show how long it does take, because it takes a little bit of time to actually get into these, and so, but I actually cut most of this short, but I wanted to show the process of getting into it. It does take a while. I would say, depends on how frozen again, but I would say at least 30 minutes, 40 minutes sometimes, trying to, if with it frozen with the ice sticking out of the holes, if you're that frozen with a steamer, you're probably going to be there at least 40 minutes, maybe an hour. So, but don't rush it. It's not a speed thing. And once we get in, you'll see how frosted this thing was. It's pretty bad, and I'll explain some of the reasoning and some of the symptoms and why it's actually doing what it's doing. As you can see, we're getting in. Now I'm steaming and breaking some of the ice. You do not want to force this thing. You will just rip it. A lot of guys will just rip that cover and say you have to replace it. No, you don't have to replace the cover. Okay, now it's free, so we're going to disconnect connectors. take a look. I will point out where all the ice started forming, and that's ice, that's not frost. So this unit's been icing up for a while. Those screws should have been stainless steel. Samsung, shame on you. Fan is free, but lots of times, not always, you want to remove your fan. Okay. Okay, yeah, here's ice. See that? That's all ice. Yeah, look at those screws. Ridiculous. Now, that cover, sometimes it's stuffed with ice, so always pull it out. Just be on the safe side. Should be like 2 screws. Remove it and frost it out, steam it out. Ice there along. So I'm going to take this to the sink for now, or set it down. So a lot of times, people will say, or you'll hear guys say, yeah, you could just, turn the forced defrost on. Not a good idea. Reason for that is these are plastic units, and forced defrost will run the heater, and you will end up melting. See these corners right there? You'll end up melting those, or at least crack them, because you have that extra heat going there constantly. And a lot of times, defrosting is actually, by the way, that drain is totally clogged. Okay? And yeah, so yeah, see the rotation of my hand? That's basically from a clogged drain. And when the heater comes on, it just sucks, the fan sucks the steam, and in that rotation. And that's how you can tell the difference. If you had a bad heater, that whole coil would have been frosted over. And sometimes the thermistor could be moved. I was just pointing that. But this is not a defrost as in a heater issue. So the heater would crack all that. So you see that ice right there? That means the seal right there was allowing air to be pulled in. You can see how it's joint. So that's ice. So that's one thing with Samsung. They do have an air problem. And so we're going to defrost this guy and get it put back together. We're also going to unclog that drain. And I am not sure if I included it in this video, but in yours or on your repair, make sure that once you have unclogged all the drain, make sure that you're able to pour water, and you should actually see the water going down. If it's pooling, then your drain is still restricted, it's still clogged. So that's one thing to look out for. And definitely use a steamer. Do not attempt with a heater or a hairdryer. It is not recommended by Samsung or by any technicians that is worth his salt. And just take your time. Excuse me. Now, also to avoid this from happening again, once everything is defrosted, I would recommend either replacing the drain tubes. So those are duckbills. they're somewhat effective. Most times when you have a new Samsung, you don't have any issue, as in the unit usually does a great job while it's new. And over time, those drain, they basically become inadequate and they start to allow warmer air from, to be sucked into the fridge. Look at all that ice. Lots of ice. Let's take that to the sink. And yes, you will need some towels because that's a lot of water. And I like to do the drain last. Reason for that, you don't overwhelm the drain with all that water, and you don't cause any flooding. So let's do the drain now. And you will hear a certain noise, almost like water going down a drain. Once it's totally cleared out, you will hear it, and you can always test it by pouring a little bit of water and make sure the water flows all the way down. So that black thing is your heater. You can always check yours if you want. It's always a good idea to check everything while you're there, and especially if you're not sure. So go ahead and check everything. The thermistor was that little black thing that basically tells the fridge, monitors the temperature based on the reading from the thermistor. And so when those are bad, sometimes you could ice up, or sometimes the fridge will basically run too long and you end up getting ice. Normally it's not a heating issue. It could, but most often it's going to be icing up. Ice on the floor. Yeah, look at that. Big chunks. So yeah, drain was kind of stubborn. Sometimes you actually have to put a tube and slide it down while you're using the steamer to knock it out. And sometimes you can go in the back of the unit. I think it's 5 screws. Remove those screws, pull the cover off, and you can pull the drain tubes as you're doing this. Also, you can also go from the back. Some models you can't. Some units the freezer you can. The ice maker side you can as well. Sometimes the refrigerator or fresh food, it's somewhat difficult because there's a curve. So now I'm checking for drainage. That's pretty good. One more time. Oh yeah, that's good. Excellent. So that's how you check drain, to make sure that it is draining properly, so that you don't have to do this again. Normally, once you replace the drain tubes and get it cleaned up, normally you're pretty good. Like I said, these foams, these seals, sometimes I think I'll point them out in a second. Yeah, a little bit of ice there. Yeah, let's get all that off. So the foam that goes around the perimeter of that, they do get a little mushy or saturated. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. They do live in wet areas, so it's moist. You can't avoid that. Normally they swell up and they do a pretty good sealing. If you notice you're missing any, then I would suggest either get replacement or adequate compatible, and just basically follow the contour and reseal yours. You can, or you can just replace the entire cover. They're not that expensive anymore. Just pop a new one in. You can always check, make sure your fan is free. Check all the ice, make sure nothing is blocking the fan. Check all the airways. Yeah, those foams, they wear out. And sometimes they actually get so wet and they freeze over. And of course, when they freeze like that, it's because there's steam, and steam is nothing more than, well, vaporized water. But as soon as it hits the cold, it condenses into ice. So just doing a last check before we put this back up. Yeah, no ice, I already checked, but definitely check yours. Make sure if you leave ice in that, then it will not, you basically will be stuck doing the same thing. So check all the ice, look at that. Yep. One final check, make sure everything's nice and clean. Yep, doesn't need to be moved, that's fine, because it's not a defrost issue. So if this was a heater not staying on long enough, then you would move that down a little bit so that it senses the temperature change faster. But this is not a defrost issue, as in a heater or a board or a thermistor. So we leave that alone. And we're going to insert this back in. A little cumbersome at first. You'll get it. Just make sure you support it as you hold it up to plug your connections in, and don't forget to plug them in. Almost. Nope. Nope. That's not it. No, sir. Turn it around. Turn it around. Other way. And Mr. Blue. The Mister. Beautiful. Insert the top first. And just snap her together. And she's pretty much ready now for screws. One there, one there, one there. Thanks, guys. Like and subscribe. Thank you.